So for this lesson, the students will be learning about the wetland ecosystem here at Willow-Witt Ranch. And so to start this lesson off, we'll have the students discuss what an ecosystem is. And so have them in small groups and start brainstorming what kind of things are in an ecosystem and have them share it with the group. And so from this lesson on, we're going to be talking about the wetland ecosystem. So one of the important ecosystems here at Willow-Witt Ranch. And there are a lot of people here that are trying to restore and keep this area safe. So it's a really important area to learn about and know about for the future. And so to start this activity off, we're going to be doing a game with a beach ball that will have vocab words written on it. So the students will be standing in a circle and the beach ball will be tossed to a student. And when they grab it, whatever vocab word is closest to their right thumb, they'll have to try and define that word. And if they're a little confused by what it means, they can ask another student for help. So hopefully, after a few minutes, the beach ball will have been passed around, and the students will have an idea for what types of things we'll be learning about today, and what types of things that they should be keeping in their brain as we're going through this lesson. So for the next part of the activity, after the students have learned some vocab words, they will be given a laminated card with an animal on it. They'll be put around their neck. And I want them to start thinking about what part of the food chain is their animal present in. So what type of things are they eating? What types of places are they living? What is their role in this wetland ecosystem? So once the students have gotten their laminated organism cards, they're going to come up to this bird blind area. And so from this bird blind, you're able to see the turtle pond from here. And so what the students are now going to do is learn how to use binoculars. And so since the turtle pond is a very delicate ecosystem, we don't want students exploring really close to the pond and potentially damaging that ecosystem. So we're going to have them do some exploration and some studying of the area using binoculars from up here in a safe space. And so the students will be given binoculars and shown how to use them, and they'll have some practice items that they can try to focus in on before using it to search for actual animals out here in the turtle pond. And so the students, once they have how to use the binoculars down, they will be able to come through and look through the bird blind using their binoculars, hopefully try to find the animal that they were given, or try to find maybe a turtle in the turtle pond using their binoculars. And so the students will be given 10 minutes to do this and try to find the most interesting organism or tree, plant, thing that they can find that they will later share with the group. And while they're doing this, remind them to be conscious of, do they think their animal is a producer, consumer, decomposer? What part of the food chain do they think their animal is in? Because we'll be doing an activity with that later in the day. So for this next part of the wetland lesson, the students will be creating a food chain using the laminated cards that have been given to them in the beginning of the lesson. And so to do this, they're going to create a linear food chain to begin with. So have the student decide where in the food chain that they would fall. So are they a producer? Are they a consumer? Are they a decomposer? And where would they fall along that food chain line? And so once the students have created this food chain, have them go through and discuss, could this food chain look any different? Could they be standing in a different place in the line and it would still make sense? So start to talk about the interconnection between all of the animals that are found here in the wetland area. And then once this has been completed, introduce the idea of a food web. So what is a food web? It's basically a combination of different food chains that are all intertwined together. So to do this activity, we're going to have the students create a food web where they'll all be standing in a circle, and you'll have a ball of yarn that they're going to be tossing to each other, something that would eat them. So for example, if you started off with a plant, they would possibly throw it to a deer. And so they make sure to hold on to that piece of yarn, so they're creating an actual web within the center of it. And so you can go through and discuss with the students that a lot of times food webs and food chains are not linear. They're all interconnected and intertwined because animals can eat a lot of different things and be eaten by a lot of different things. So you can go through once the food web has been created and talk about the different animals that are found here in the wetlands and how they're important to this ecosystem and how they're important to each other. For this wetland lesson, the last activity will be for the students to represent being pond turtles in a game called Turtle Power. And so the western pond turtle population that we have at Willow-Witt Ranch here is the highest elevation of pond turtles that is known. And so the students really need to get a feel for why it's really important to help keep the pond turtles safe and happy while they're up here. And so to do this, they're going to play a game called Turtle Power. And so they are going to be trying to gather 3 different items that turtles need to survive. Their shelter, their basking rock, and then food. And so during each round, there'll be different colored chips spread across the ground. And the students will need to go and try to get 3 different chips of each color to try to survive into the next season. Now, pond turtles have a lot of threats in real life, and so we're going to include some threats in the game as well. So there'll be 2 different threats that the pond turtles are facing. One will be an invasive species and one will be an invasive plant. And so the invasive plant, what they do at the beginning of each round is go in and take 5 different resource chips from the pool. And so how that'll affect the pond turtles is they'll have less resources to have them move on to the next round or the next season. And the other is an invasive species. And so they'll be standing in a hula hoop within the boundaries of the game, and they cannot leave the hula hoop, but their job is to try to tag the turtles as they're trying to get their resources. And so if a turtle gets tagged or doesn't get enough chips for the next round, then they will be out for the rest of that round, and then they will have to become either an invasive species or an invasive plant for the next round. And so when the game begins, you have all the students crouch down like a turtle and yell "turtle power!" Then they have to go out and try to gather all the chips that they need, and then with trying not to be tagged or harmed by an invasive species or a plant. And so you can play this game for 3 rounds, and you can also introduce different things like habitat loss, or an invasive species comes in and maybe wipes out more chips than it normally would, just to represent the challenges that a normal pond turtle would face. And so once this game is finished, you can discuss with the students how you think pond turtles are affected by different things that happen in our area. So maybe fires, habitat loss, invasive species and predators that come in, and have them brainstorm some ways that they can help protect the pond turtles that are up here at Willow-Witt Ranch. And so once they've thought about that for a little while, you're going to have the students sit in a circle on the ground, and to wrap up the activity, we're going to have them discuss the different organisms and different species that they saw today. So have them go around and maybe talk about their animal that was on their laminated card, or an animal that they saw that was really interesting to them, and then have them talk about why it's important to this ecosystem, this wetland ecosystem. And then at the very end, have them discuss why it's important to preserve the wetlands up here at Willow-Witt Ranch, and why it's important to try to preserve the ecosystems that we have so that they're not damaged in the future.